Hey, what's up guys, it's Disturbed, and today I'm going to be showing you guys an insane sticky bomb / DPS hybrid build that I came up with a few days ago, and I finally was able to put it together pretty nicely. You know, it isn't perfect, but it still is pretty nice. Now, before everyone starts commenting saying, I'm a bitch for using a sticky bomb build, fuck you Disturbed, you suck at the game, sticky bombs are for noobs, you know, I totally understand the frustration. You know, I hate getting one-shotted by sticky bombs too. But the build that I came up with is just so functional that I feel obligated to show you guys because, you know, it's something different. It's not just a cookie cutter tactician build, you know, it's something that I came up with personally. Someone else might have thought of it, but I did come up with it myself a few days ago, and I'm proud to see as to how it turned out. Most sticky bomb builds these days, at least in my opinion, aren't really that great. Usually they're like a tactician or a tank claimer build, and what they do is basically just stack toughness and skill power and completely disregard firearms so they don't do that much damage. So the whole functionality of their build just revolves around using their sticky bomb, and when they don't have that up, all they're doing is running in circles until they get it back, which honestly is kind of a bitch way to play. It doesn't really require that much skill. You know, I'm not really hating on anyone that uses a tactician build. I just don't think that it's as practical as the build I'm about to show you guys is, and it doesn't really require that much skill to utilize it. Another point is that nowadays it doesn't really matter how much toughness you have because you'll most likely get one or two shotted by a shotgun either way. So why not, instead of investing in a toughness, invest in the firearms and get some huge amount of damage out of it, and that is exactly what I did with this build. Alright, so here is my build. I have 2,839 firearms. This gives me enough firearms to be able to unlock all my gun talents. Stacking past this is kind of counterproductive, so I'd say just get up to that firearms cap. And then the rest I just put all into stamina, and then I have a little bit into skill power. And as you can see, I have a max sticky bomb, which is just amazing that I was even able to achieve that with this build, and I'll get into how I did that in a minute here. But firstly, let's get into what gear sets I'm using. So I'm running 3 pieces of Tactician, 2 pieces of Final Measure, and Savage Gloves. The reason I went for the 3 pieces of Tactician is just because I wasn't able to reach sticky bomb cap without the extra 4k skill power, and the 20% skill haste is just really good. Basically what I did with this build, if you saw my best DPS build video for PvP that I made a while ago, that was like a best DPS build for all rounded play. I was using 3-piece Striker, 2-piece Final Measure, and Savage, and what I did was like, hey, why don't I try to switch out 3-piece Striker, and instead of getting 25% crit damage, I just roll off crit damage on my backpack and switch those 3 pieces of gear to Tactician and then get a full sticky, and that is exactly what I did. So I kept the 2 pieces of Final Measure. The only reason I did this is because I thought it would be good with the build, and then I later realized that it's pretty much entirely pointless with the amount of toughness that I have and the EDR on my chest piece, and the fact that not that many people use sticky bomb builds anymore. 50% exotic damage resilience is kind of pointless. You could easily switch this out to getting a vigorous chest and an inventive backpack, but the problem with that is that I don't have a vigorous chest or an inventive backpack, and my Final Measure stuff works really nicely with this build, but keep in mind that you could definitely switch that out. I just kept it just because it was the best and fits with my build really nicely, but keep in mind, you know, you definitely can't switch those pieces. And then for the other piece, I have Savage Gloves. Savage Gloves give me 14% crit chance, and since I'm using an SMG and stacking crit damage as much as possible, the extra crit chance lets me do a lot of damage and is one of the main parts of this build that actually lets it be a DPS hybrid build. So Savage Gloves are a really important part of that. You could go for Reckless, but I would say that with this build, going for a vigorous chest piece and then using Booster Shot would be a lot better than going for Reckless, but it really just up to you and what you're able to get. So I'm going to look at my guns, and then I'm going to look at my gear individually, and then talk about how you can reach sticky bomb cap with this amount of toughness and this amount of firearms. It can be really hard. My build isn't perfect, but you know, if you get decently good enough pieces after farming and grinding enough, you can get the right build setup. It could take a long time, but trust me, it's worth it because, you know, this build is a crap load of fun to use. But anyways, let's get into it. So for my guns, you want a PP19. The PP19 is way better than the MP7. If all you have to do to make it better than the MP7 is put on a magazine that has weapon damage or crit damage and rate of fire, and once you do that, the RPM will only be 50 behind that of the MP7, but you have a 13 bigger mag, and 13 extra bullets just makes your burst DPS skyrocket. It makes you do a whole bunch of extra damage. And since this build is kind of lacking huge burst damage, like won't be doing as much damage as Alpha Bridge, still has really good burst damage, but getting a PP19 just makes this build even better. For PvP, I would say SMGs are top tier. I've tried LMGs, I've tried assault rifles, I've tried everything else. LMGs are just way better than everything, just because of the built-in base damage, the rounds per minute, and the extra crit damage built in. Just lets it have a much higher damage potential, and out of the SMG class, the PP19 is definitely way better than that of the MP7 if you were able to mod it correctly. As you can see, I have higher base damage. My crit damage is lower, but I have higher base damage with the PP19, and the mag size being 13 bullets bigger by putting a rate of fire and weapon damage mod or crit damage on the magazine just makes it way better than the MP7. And then in terms of modding the rest of it, I'm sure you know how, but just to reiterate, for the scope, you want headshot damage and crit chance, obviously, and then on the muzzle, I would say go for accuracy and crit damage, not because accuracy inflates your DPS, but because with this PP19, it does have a pretty decent amount of reticle spread. You can see the reticle spread going out there. It does look like it could mess up your build, but honestly, it's easy to contain players within the reticle spread, and it doesn't move out that much. Accuracy will help to contain it a little bit. Without accuracy, it gets a little bit worse than this, but it isn't that bad, and honestly, it is still better than that of the MP7. For your secondary weapon, just get something that can handle NPCs without wasting your SMG ammo. I got a G36 that has destructive and brutal on it, which is pretty nice. 23% enemy armor damage against NPCs is fantastic. So definitely, for your secondary, just go for like either an LMG, or you can even get a shotgun if you want, or an M1A or a G36 or something. I just got an assault rifle because it's easier for me to use and it clears out NPCs, and if I happen to run out of ammo with my PP19, I can use it against other players. It's not great, but it still is functional. I would say primarily just get a LMG or a G36. That's enough about that. Sorry if I'm ranting. Sorry, I don't want to make this video too long, but it is what it is. So getting into the individual gear pieces. On your chest piece, you can either vouch for exotic damage resilience. I would say you need exotic damage resilience if you're going to not use 2 pieces of final measure. Without that, you're going to get one-shotted by stickies. But if you are using 2 pieces of final measure, you can easily switch out exotic damage resilience for something else, because you will already tank stickies and they won't really do any damage to you, especially with the amount of toughness that you have with this build. So I would just say you can either go for health or health on kill. Damage to elites won't help you out that much, but it is what it is. And then you definitely want to make sure to get armor to reach armor cap. And then on my chest, I have sticky bomb damage, which helps me reach the cap. Moving on to my mask, I have skill power for obvious reasons, just to get my skill power high enough to get my sticky bomb maxed. And then just out of the luck of the RNGesus gods, I have 9% sticky bomb explosion rates, which just helps my sticky bomb be even more effective. It's not fantastic, but it's pretty nice. And then on my knee pads, I have crit damage. You definitely want to make sure to get crit damage. Skill attributes aren't great, but you need the crit damage because that will make you actually be able to do a decent amount of damage. Without that, you won't be doing that much damage. For your backpack, you want skill power, obviously, and then I got pretty lucky and I was able to get sticky bomb damage on my backpack, so that's definitely a nice find. And then on your gloves, like I said before, you want savage gloves. You won't need savage gloves if you have somebody on your team with a really high pulse, but honestly in PvP, usually people don't run like a 40% crit chance pulse, so savage gloves usually are really nice to have. And with my build, they just complement it so much with the additional crit damage that I have on all my pieces. Getting the extra crit chance lets me do a lot of extra damage. And then in terms of the major attributes on these gloves, you want crit damage, SMG damage, and critical hit chance. Pretty much no switching that out there. And then on your holster, oh my god, my holster is terrible. Look at the base stat rolls, my god. But it has sticky bomb damage, so the sticky bomb damage helps me reach cap. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be looking at this build and be like, I can't possibly get 3 pieces of gear with sticky bomb damage on it. I can't replicate this build at all. And I know, I really do fully understand that. It took me a while to get the perfect pieces for this, but once you do get the perfect pieces, it is really nice. But just in the meantime, just one way to substitute that is, instead of getting 3 pieces with sticky bomb damage, one thing that you can do is, instead of getting like stamina on 1 piece of gear, you can't trade off firearms because you need the firearms for the functionality of the build, but you can trade off stamina on 1 piece of gear and then get electronics. As you can see, that does bring my toughness down to roughly 355k. That is because I'm losing, or no, not losing a stamina mod, so it does bring my toughness down quite a significant amount, but it will let you reach sticky bomb cap if you need it. But otherwise, I would just say try really hardly to get the sticky bomb damage on your gear. I know it can be a pain in the ass, but it makes the build a lot better. As you can see, like I showed before, I got max sticky, and that's with only 35k skill. The build is really hard to achieve, but once you get it, it's really nice to use. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the build. Actually, one more thing to note before I get into the skills. You want to be stacking as much skill power as you possibly can on your mods. If you don't get skill power on your mods, you probably won't be able to reach sticky bomb cap. I actually had to put an electronics mod with skill power in order to reach sticky bomb cap. Without this, I'm like at like 247. I'm really close to it, but I just needed a little bit of electronics. Just make sure to get every single mod with electronics, or not electronics, with skill power on it. Now for your skills, you want First Aid with Overdose. Obviously, you can switch this out to Booster Shot if you are using a Vigorous chest, but usually I would use Overdose. Booster Shot can be actually pretty nice if your skill power is higher. I would either say to switch out from Overdose or Booster Shot. Defibrillator is pretty much complete and total garbage, but Overdose lets you heal for more, and Booster Shot just gives additional damage and damage resilience. So I'd either say go for Booster Shot or Overdose. Booster Shot is probably a little bit nicer because it does give the extra damage to your teammates, and you will still benefit from Triage when using this. It won't give your teammates a full overshield if you're not using Vigorous, but the extra damage and damage resistance can be pretty nice, and it will heal them up to almost full anyways, because if you just run through it 1 or 2 times, you get to full health anyways. So Booster Shot or Overdose there, and then obviously you're going to be using a Sticky Bomb. Now just going to quickly go over talents. You want Triage so that when you put a First Aid on the ground, you and your teammates can run through it and get your heal back and your Sticky Bomb back almost instantly. And on top of that, if a teammate of yours actually puts a First Aid down too, it works as well. So if you put a First Aid and your teammate does and your other teammates do and you all run through it, you'll get your skills back almost instantly. Triage is way too overpowered and kind of broken as it is right now. Not going to rant about that, that's for another video, but definitely make sure to get Triage. Next talent, you want Chain Reaction so that your Sticky Bomb does more damage when there's more players next to it and will result in you one-shotting even some people with EDR on their chest piece, so it's definitely a must-have. Lastly, I have One Is None, which lets me just get my bullets right back after headshotting somebody. This is mainly good for NPCs. In PvP, it's not the greatest. You could easily switch that out for something like Precision, but I found that Precision isn't that great when you're in team, because with a team, you'll probably be having a pulse up, so Precision is kind of pointless at that point. You could also vouch for Strike Back, but honestly, you shouldn't really get to low health with this build anyways, and even if you do your skill haste on top of triaging and everything else and your current skill power, you won't really have that much of a problem getting your skills back. So I would say this talent is at best situational, not that great with this build. Could be good with other builds, but honestly, it just isn't that great. So I would say try to go for One Is None for the extra damage potential that you could get out of it. Lastly, you want Critical Save, which is a must-have with this build. When you use a med kit or even a First Aid or even a support station, don't know why it works like that, but it gives you additional damage resistance after using those things when you're at low health, and 40% is actually a crap load, and it works with First Aid. So with this build, you're going to be spamming First Aids over and over again. So getting the extra damage resistance can help you be a lot more tankier than you already are. So this is definitely amazing. Yeah guys, that's pretty much it for the build. Once you get everything set up correctly, the functionality of this build is just insane. The fact that you can like throw a sticky in someone's face and right after that melt them really quickly while they're still disoriented and bleeding from the sticky is just insane, if you didn't one-shot them already. I streamed with this build earlier today and it was just a crap load of fun to use. I was able to heal my teammates up to full health constantly to help them stay alive. And the fact that I can potentially one-shot someone with a Sticky Bomb build and then do over 8k crits to the head with my PB19 to someone else and kill them really quickly, it's so much fun to use and it's crazy. To be honest, it might be a little bit overpowered in the hands of a really good player and if you have the build perfectly set up, but I don't want this to get nerfed right now just because I'm having too much fun with it. But anyways, like I said, my build isn't the best in the world and has a lot of room for potential improvement. But if you were to set this up perfectly, you could be a complete monster in the Dark Zone. Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to drop a like, follow me on Twitter so you can ask me any questions you want, and subscribe for videos similar to this one, and I'll see you later guys.
Bye.